You stop.
I'm starting. Okay. Hey guys, we're back for another Creators Chat. We are doing this one sort of on writing. This is November, obviously, so it is National Novel Writing Month. NaNoWriMo. NaNoWriMo.
Which is the first time both of us have ever kind of even contemplated doing it, right?
Oh, I've contemplated it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've fantasized about doing this like for a decade or something.
That's cool.
Yeah, and we're still not doing it. Just as like before, like the people go crazy and they're like, "Oh my God, you're not following the rules." We're not following the rules, and we know we're not following the rules.
We're writing our own rules.
We are Rairu.
What?
Rairu.
NaNoWriMo.
Write your own rules. Sounds great.
No.
I'm going to start my own.
I don't
Start
like
my
it.
own website.
Honey,
All you do is write your own rules all month long.
That's your life, honey.
Yeah, just write your own.
Anyway.
So yeah, we're writing a lot this month. We are not painting very much at all.
No, we've both prioritised writing for this month. So I believe the actual guidelines, the whole point of the challenge is to, over the course of November, write 50,000 words, which is about a novel length. So the average is 1,667 words per day. And we are we've kind of amended our own rules for this. So for me, my goal is 40,000 on my existing novel, which was standing at about 33,000 at the time.
Sure.
So for me, it was trying to propel the story forward.
Right.
For you actually did a similar thing because you have an existing book too.
Sort of, yeah. So I did something existing because I'm working on obviously a former project, but my goals are also lower than yours are, for instance. No, they are by a fair bit. Like I'm only trying to do 30,000. So obviously real NaNoWriMo is 50, you're doing 40. Realistic, you'll probably do more. And I'm going to just do 30.
Yeah.
Also, I'm writing nonfiction, and this is specifically a fiction writing thing.
Yes.
So I'm breaking that rule too.
It's much easier, maybe in my opinion, to just like nonsense write through fiction than it is nonfiction.
Yeah.
But,
we'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess let's start with talking about our projects. I know we mentioned them a little bit in our last episode, but it's probably a good idea to at least go over what we're doing.
Yeah, okay. So I'm writing a fantasy novel called The Sum of Our Deeds. And at the moment, it's still in the first draft phase. But like this challenge this month has made it, since the last time I spoke, it's like doubled in length nearly. Yeah. And so suddenly it's taken on quite a substantial form, which is really exciting. I'm hoping to have the first draft completed by the end of the year, which means hopefully, this is my internet promise, to get it sort of published next year sometime.
Yeah.
So that's all very exciting.
Yeah.
And you?
No.
No, it's still me.
No, you're not done.
No,
you can't just say it's a fantasy novel. You have to give a little bit more than that.
Are you making me do an elevator pitch?
Yeah.
I just got my hat on and hey guys.
Yeah.
So basically I'm really interested in kind of small scale fantasy and kind of ethics, right and wrong. I didn't really fancy writing kind of the big epic battles and fantasy and stuff and magic, and I mean there is magic in mine, but I didn't really feel myself drawn to political battles. I was much more interested in personal politics, about how people deal with politics and good and evil and right and wrong on a day-to-day basis. So my story is kind of an exploration of how our perception of what is right and wrong and who is like good and bad changes, and how we can kind of adapt to that and try and be best we can be. Is that good enough?
Yeah.
Yeah? You happy with that elevator pitch?
Can you at least say a little bit about your main character?
Ava. So I drew her. I've drawn her a couple of times now. She comes from a little village called Chiam, and she has this like perfect, idyllic, tropical life that I wish I had. She basically just lives by the beach and makes jewelry for a living and totally self-implanting in there. But she basically is kind of thrust, of course, because it's a fantasy book, thrust from her perfect, idyllic village life. And when her mum commits suicide unexpectedly, it's quite grisly and awful. And basically they had this lovely village life and no one knows why the hell this happened. And basically she finds out that the politics of their village are governed by a far-off government that she's never even dealt with. And she basically gets to go off with them and try and find out what happens to her mum. But along the way, there's a lot of kind of stuff that happens that makes her question her understanding of everything about the way that she was brought up and things like that. So
should be good.
Yeah, I hope so.
So next summer, right?
I'm hoping, I think so. I think we're going to be looking into it. I'm hoping to have the kind of the book complete, finished writing by kind of early next year. And then we'll kind of look into, I'm thinking of self-publishing because I'm too lazy to go through the publisher route.
No, you're too independent.
Thank you.
Just take the positive spin on it all.
I like this. I'm going to upsell this. I want total control over the process. I want to make sure it's the highest quality project you can possibly get. No middlemen.
Exactly.
Yeah. So self-publishing, that's a whole road I'll have to go down at some point.
That'll be fun.
I'm sure it will be. I'm sure it'll be a blast. But I'm kind of doing one thing at a time at the moment, which means furiously focusing on writing and not thinking about any of the logistics. But we're getting there. And as of today's word count, it's hit 58,000 today. So it's progressing well.
Wow, that's great.
I feel good about it. It feels nice. I do. I get like a massive like pleasure kick out of watching the word count grow. I find it's so much more quantifiable than art and things like that I'm used to, and I sit down and write and I can actually see how much I've done. I can scroll back through my pages. I can see every single word makes the word count timer go up, and I'm like, yes. So I've been really enjoying it. It's been really good for me. How about your book? So what's your book?
My book is How to Be a Creator .com.
Can we get a jingle?
Yes, exactly. I need special effects. If I put more effort into this, I do some fancy animations.
I like it.
But I won't. So just have to imagine those. They're all there.
These are sparkles.
Yeah, I mean, you're pretty sparkly.
Aw, thanks. Sometimes.
I'm writing a nonfiction book. And it stems from the idea of what would I do if I had to do it all over again? And would I do everything just like I've done? Would I teach myself how to be an artist in the exact same way? And the answer is yes and no. I like the way things turned out, obviously, but I also would do a lot of things differently. And so that's sort of the seed of the idea. And that exploded from one little article I was going to write into, oh God, now I have a book. I have way too many things that I need to write about and way too many things to say to get it down to just an article. So I came up with that idea for the book form probably about 2 years ago, and started to outline that and develop it, and really only established that I was going to do the full book and started talking about it as of this past summer. That's kind of when I started announcing it, and I should be able to get done with the rough draft and get it published probably the coming spring. I think I'll be able to do the spring. I don't think it'll take too much editing to get through. I'll try to do my best, but we'll see. But I've got the goal of 30,000. Obviously, I had started with some already there. It wasn't starting from scratch. So I think mine's up to, I've done like 17,000 this month. That's awesome. That gets us up to like 33,000 so far. I'm pretty happy with that. It's really fun. It's really difficult. I like writing articles. I've written articles my entire career, but there's something about writing effectively 40 articles in a row and tying them all together where it's like, whoa, that's
you get to say so many opinions.
I get to be so sassy.
You sassy?
Yeah, I know it's a change. I get to tell people they're wrong.
Wow.
I know. Very rarely and extremely respectfully, of course.
Of course.
I never mock them for their stupid opinions.
I know. That guilty, guys. That face. That's Noah's cheeky, guilty face.
I never have a cheeky, guilty face. I'm always innocent. Always.
So innocent.
Yeah.
This is why he gets away with so much.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Anyway.
So I think before I started talking about mine, you were talking about something that I think is really important, and that is the fact that we've tracked our word progress every day, because that has been hugely helpful for me. I kind of put off writing it for a while there because I was doing lots of freelance jobs and I was painting all the time, and I just didn't think I had the time to sit down and write. And it felt like such a daunting thing that it didn't feel like small contributions would do anything. It felt like if I sat down and wrote 300 words, that it wouldn't actually contribute to the total. Right. Even though it does, it doesn't feel like it does. And so being able to have an actual visual register of how much I'm doing each day and then how much that's actually adding up to is extremely helpful for me because I've written 17,000 words this month. And if I had sat down at November 1st and tried to write 17,000 words, I would have jumped off the bridge down the road and just given up. Be like, nope, that's not happening.
Check it out.
No,
not doing this.
It's complete failure.
It's never going to happen.
Burn the book. Just run away from society. It's clearly hopeless. But there's something about 1,000 words a day that is entirely doable for me. Some days it is a slog and I barely get there. Other days I've gotten up to somewhere around 3,000 words and it's been pretty easy and smooth and I've had good ideas and things have just flowed. So it just varies. We've had a couple days where we didn't do anything because we were out all day and stuff doing things. And so we've had to make up for that. And
I found it a really nice break from art, actually, because one of my struggles with art is I can never tell how much I'm progressing. I have no idea of my skill level. I have no idea how long a painting's going to take me until I'm close to finishing it.
Right.
I kind of am generally quite lost. I can't quantify it. And that's something I didn't realize I was missing from my process until I started writing. And I realized how much that made me tick, just having something that was indisputable. Okay, like there might be like 1,000 words of crap, but it's 1,000 words and no one can tell me it's not 1,000 words. It is. Right. And so just putting that down at the end of the day and watching that slowly took over and separating the process down into, rather than like trying to do the first draft, rather than trying to make that the final edit first off the bat, you're kind of breaking it down and going, right, I just need 1,000 words down, next 1,000 words, next 1,000 words. And it's way more like easy to kind of climb along it.
Right.
And that really like gives me dopamine hits. That kind of, it's ridiculous. I think it's probably the way I was brought up. I was very academic and I had my homework diaries where I'd write down everything and I'd cross it off when I was done. And it's just kind of trained this pattern in me of like crossing something off is a massive pleasure hit for me. I'm like, I've done it and I feel good. Until I've done the like striking it off, I don't feel that great about it. Something about the actual going, I've done it. It's like, great. And writing has made me realize that. And making these spreadsheets to go, oh my God, my spreadsheet's way over the top. It gets more elaborate every day. It changed again today. Oh, no. So basically we've got these spreadsheets that we're using to track our growing word count. And we're just kind of doing fancy things with them, like kind of forecasting, setting daily targets, and that will adjust based on where you're at and all this stuff. And every day I add new numbers to it. So I'm like, what date do I think I'm going to finish? How many words do I think I'm going to have when I finish? Today it changes color based on, I know, if I hit plus or minus 100 on my word goal, I get a yellow. If I go over 100 my word goal, it goes green. And if I'm under 100 my word goal, it goes red. So I've now got like a visual cue of like, it's like disco lights for depending on how well I'm doing. I want my green boxes. And that is just ridiculously good at making me get on with it. I actually thought I'd finished today. And then I saw, I made like a stupid list of stupid numbers. I had a box that said, days until completion, and it said 10.07, and I was like, I can't leave it at 07. So then I wrote another 100 words so it would bump it down. It would be
you could just round things, right? That's a feature in spreadsheets.
Stuff. I got my roundup function going on some of them, but I like that because if I hadn't seen that there saying 0.7, I'd have just gone. But because it was 0.07, I just another 100 to get it down. Like it's like watching the gas meter filling up and trying to get at the right round number. It was like that. And that is just like, it's made it so much easier to sit down and get on with the work. I don't question it. I don't have so many existential crises as I do with my art, which tells me that I need to be looking at my art journey and kind of translating these things I've learned over about kind of quantifying the process and making the sort of tangible steps that I can do rather than just kind of being like paint a painting. It's different steps broken down. And that really works for me. It might not work for other people, but it's more like a how you can kind of draw information on how to improve your workflow from other areas of life. It's worked really well for me.
Nice.
And how about you? How has it been for you? Because I know that you don't quite derive the same box ticking pleasure as I do.
Not quite, but I do understand it and I do appreciate it. it certainly helps for me to be able to do that. I am a little bit more wishy-washy than you are, but it has certainly helped. It certainly motivated me to keep going with this stuff. I think the other main thing that's really helped me is just kind of participating in this thing, even though we're not participating. I think
participating.
Yeah, I do very well when I have like an extremely focused, short duration sprint of work. If you asked me to do this for a year, don't think I could do that because that sounds exhausting to me. A month, though, a month is pretty doable. A month I can put off my painting work. I can find enough hours to do my assignments in the spare time. I can neglect the rest of my life a little bit. I can sacrifice a few things for a month and just do something that I don't necessarily want to do. It's not like every day I wake up and I'm like, oh, right, I can't wait to write. But for that brief time period, I can force myself into these new patterns. Yeah. And I think I like doing it that way.
I think that's actually something that's very important is a lot of people think that when they're trying to balance their lives, they need to always at every single point in their life have everything in perfect balance.
Right.
They need to be waking up early. They need to be having a nutritious, healthy breakfast that they've cooked from scratch and bought from the local organic market. They need to then go to the gym, but they should also be reading the news on the way to the gym. And like, it's just like everything is so like, there's a lot. That is a lot of stuff. Yeah. Like there are so many things that we feel we should be doing.
Right.
And it's hard to balance all those things and keep on top of them.
Right.
I think that allowing yourself to kind of rotate through priorities is really healthy. It allows you to kind of maintain some inspiration. I certainly in the same way, if I've got a sprint kind of thing going on and I'm like, this month I'm doing this many words, that's way more exciting to me than I have a book to write and also I'm meant to be an artist at the same time. Also, I'm trying to lose some weight. Yeah. It's just like, oh God, that's terrible.
Yeah.
But if I can kind of focus on one and make it fun and then kind of once that novel is done, it's not so much a pressure anymore. I can focus on other things.
Yeah.
I think that we put a lot of guilt on ourselves and think that everyone in the world is doing everything at once and we suck because we're not.
Clearly they are.
Always. Everyone's just like on go the whole time. But, you know, it's fine to rotate things in and out. And I think I'd go insane if I couldn't. If I had... Yeah. So I've got so many things on the go at the moment. I've got several projects on the go. And if I had to do every one of those every single day, I would probably I'd just cry. And I'd be like, can I just change career again, please? Can I just go back to working in an office? Because that was way simpler. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's a really good way of doing things.
Yeah, I like being able to dive in because before this I was doing a lot of painting, oil painting specifically. And that's all I was doing. That was my entire life was waking up and oil painting and then, going to the gym occasionally. Yeah. That was my life. And it was great for that time period, but I'm kind of glad I'm not doing that now. This is a nice change of pace. And actually it does tend to get me kind of excited about it. Like I've woken up at 4 a.m.
I was going to say this myself. Like whenever we go through one of like Noah's sprints, it doesn't happen so much towards the end of the sprint, but like you're like an obsessive worker when you work. You're not a consistent worker, but you are like in full blast. Yes. Get up, I'll be like in the darkness, like, what time is it? It's the time to get up. And Noah's like creeping out the room at 3:30. And I'm like,
well, sometimes I wake up at a stupid hour. I realize I have a lot of work that I need to get done that day because I've got my goal. And I'm like, I could try to go back to sleep. And my brain is way too awake for that. And so it's going to take like an hour or two to get back to sleep. And then I get another hour or two of sleep. Or I could just wake up at 3:30, work for 4 hours, and be basically done with my work for the day by the time the sun rises, which feels pretty great.
It kind of sucks when I come downstairs at like 6 or 7 o'clock and I'm like, I've been proactive and I'm up at 6 or 7 o'clock. I'm ready to start working. And he's on the sofa and he's like, yeah, I've done my work. I've done 2,000 words today. What? But it's good that you can do that. It works perfectly for you. You're getting everything you need to done. Yeah. And it's another thing that can be kind of difficult about that. Because I do it sometimes, I'll get up early and then I'll finish work by 10 o'clock. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. I have like nearly 12 hours until I'm back in bed. I need to use this time to work. Yeah. And it can be quite difficult. You beat yourself up because of all the extra time.
Yeah.
If you can set goals that you know that if you've met the minimum amount and you're happy and you don't have to do more, If you do more, that's great.
Yeah.
But it's nice to be able to separate it out like that, because otherwise you just end up working in a... Sometimes I'll do that and I haven't decided at the outset what it is I'm trying to achieve, and then simply get annoyed at myself if it's 2 p.m. and I stop working. I'm like, there's so many hours left in the day. It doesn't matter that I've written 4,000 words. I'm like, no, but there's still time.
Yeah.
So it can be nice to separate it
I
out.
think that's a really important thing, and an important aspect of setting really specific goals like this. Like, I knew from the outset exactly what my word count goal was going to be. And that lets me slack off. Like, I finished off my word count for today, and then I was like, I could keep writing, but it was not going well today. It was not going smoothly or easily. I was like, no, I think I'm just going to stop working now, and that's fine. Like, I've done my word count. I can not work for the rest of the day, and things will be fine.
Yeah.
And I think it's good to embrace that.
Yeah.
Because I think otherwise you end up in a pattern where you're just beating yourself up 24/7.
Yeah.
And obviously that's not going to motivate you to work. That's going to do quite the opposite.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good way to mess yourself up.
I think that, especially as I was saying, we're all trying to do the best we can and be doing as many things as we can.
Sure.
It means that if there are 5 things that are really important to us right now, the temptation is to try and do all of those at 100%. You're going to give everything your best if it's important to you.
Yeah.
And then if we can't hit 100% on anything, if we're getting 80% and we're just like exhausted and we hate ourselves because we didn't get 100,
Sure.
it's easier to kind of accept that you have as much energy as you have, and you have as much time as you have, and you have these priorities, and dedicating just a small piece per day. Because it's like you said, like, there's no way you would have done 17,000 words. If I kind of was like, you have to do 17,000 words, you'd just be like, no. But little by little, you've done it. And I'm the same. There's no way I'd have written, I don't know, I'm not that far ahead of you.
You're like 22 or something, right?
Something like that, 20, where am I at?
Maybe
25.
further.
25! Sorry. Success! There is no way I'd have done 25,000 words this month if I'd focused on writing as fast as I could, because I'd have just burnt out and stopped wanting to do it. If I'd done 4,000 words on the first day, that would have not have put me further along now. I would have just burnt out. So accepting that, so for me, my current daily target projected on how far I've come is about 1,200, which is not much. If I surpass that, that feels great. If I don't surpass it, I get to still know that I'm going to have the day off or focus on something else.
Right.
And I'm still going to hit my goal by the end of the month. And that's all kind of like, it's like an investment, like a currency you've pre-decided, a budget, and you're kind of allocating resources there. You're not overspending, and you know that you're going to get there. And that's like a nice way of doing it. 'Cause if I don't keep track of those goals really rigidly, I will just become miserable because I don't think I'm working hard enough.
Right.
So that's something that's really nice.
And I think without those goals, it is pretty easy to not work. Like, I quite enjoy writing, but I don't tend to set aside the time for it. Partially because it just doesn't feel like my career. It feels like a excuse to get away from painting and stuff like that. And it's an easy thing to just keep putting off. Whereas as it stands with this current thing, it's pretty easy to prioritize that. It's a nice thing. It's very refreshing. Anyone who's definitely wanted to try this in the past and hasn't, I would definitely recommend actually doing it, actually committing to it, because it's so easy to put off. Like, even looking at this one, there was a few moments before we got started of like, well, maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should be working on oil paintings and stuff. Maybe I should be working on this other stuff. Maybe I should be working on this. And I'm like, no, I'm actually gonna cut out all of that stuff.
Only decided we were going to do it, I think, like a couple of days beforehand.
Oh, yeah.
So we've been talking about it. I think you first told me about it maybe when we were like, maybe February this year. I'm not sure. I don't think I'd ever heard it before you brought it up. And I think that was the first time. And we have talked about doing it so many times and never committed to it. It was only a couple of days beforehand. And we were like, go on then.
Yeah, let's
go
do
on.
it.
Let's like, sure, why not? And I'm really glad that we did.
Yeah, me too.
But let's talk a little bit about how to start, because there'll be a lot of people who are listening to this who are like, okay, yeah, I really want to do this, but I've got no ideas. And like, I don't know where to begin. For me, I don't know if you guys have heard of so there's supposedly 2 ways of starting, and that's outlining and pantsing. And so it's kind of, outlining is fairly obvious. You'll sit down and you'll plan where everything's going and where it's going to be. And then pantsing is where you just sit down and you just kind of... I'm a pantser. I do outline. I spend a lot of time obsessing about things and writing down notes and stuff like that. So I do have like a vague idea of where I'm going, but I never plan out a scene before I write it. I just I just close my eyes and I'm like, right, I'm the character, boom, 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 boom. Which works great for me. Right. You're more of an outliner? I'm
definitely an outliner. I struggle to write pretty much anything beyond a very short story without an outline. I need to have an outline. Even for things that don't need an outline, I need an outline. Even when I'm, say, teaching an art camp course, I will outline it rigorously. I will, outline the entire course structure. I'll outline within each course, like what I want to cover, like nested bullet points are just basically how I think. It's how I used to take notes in school and stuff. Brain. It's always like, this goes within this, and this goes within this, and this is structured this way. That's just how I think about things. So when I think about writing a novel, which I am thinking about, I definitely will need a fairly significant outline. I don't need to know everything. I don't need to figure out everything in the first time, but I need to at least have the general structure, because I know that if I didn't, I'd have characters just staring off into space for 50 pages, bare minimum, just thinking about life and thinking about the existential crises they're going through right then, and nothing will happen. So
that's great. I kind of get that too. I think this is why I chop and change between the two styles. So I will kind of...
I'm not crying, by the way.
You got a bad contact lens?
Yeah, my contact lens is going crazy.
It's okay.
It's all right. It looks like it's a really emotional scene right now.
You're just you're so upset about the existential crises.
Oh my God, it's so gross.
This is very close to him. Anyway, what were we saying?
I don't know.
So I kind of switch back and forth between when I start writing. So when I started writing my novel, it evolved over the years. It's kind of hard to pinpoint a point where I was like, this is the start of it.
Right.
The start was I definitely started as an outliner.
Right.
So I wrote down I actually have a tear.
I do.
Oh no.
Single tear. Hell yeah.
This is such a touching subject.
Oh my God. That first day when you started your novel.
It was a big deal. God. So it was I can hear clomping.
Me too.
It's fine. I basically kind of wrote down my ideas for the character. I knew that I wanted to explore. That was my bolt upright moment. Was I wanted to explore the theme of not knowing if you were good or bad, or thinking that someone else was bad and finding out they're good, or vice versa. I liked the flipping things on their head, so I kind of wrote this down. And then I was like, what kind of character do I want then? And I was like, well, I want a good character that you all want to love, who then realizes that she's not as good as she thinks she is, and so that you can kind of go through that with her. And then I was kind of writing these things down. I was like, what kind of, but in terms of actual telling the story, you could write 1,000 words of outline, but when you come to a 100,000 word novel, it doesn't even come close to telling you what you need to do. It's just it's just thoughts and themes and the stuff that goes into writing a novel. I feel like for every novel, I feel like it's only scratching the surface of what the author actually thought about. That book there is about 10% of what the author thought about. They had all these other ideas for backstories. They had to know that there were things happening underneath that they never even bring up because it's not important to the reader. But the author had to think that through. So I found that outlining helped me kind of narrow down. But then it reached a point where I just couldn't think of anything good to outline anymore. I was I reached a point that I couldn't move past, where I had these ideas that were just swirling around in my head and just swirling the gutter. I was just I can't get rid of these ideas. I'm writing them down, but they're not progressing. They're just getting trapped. And that's when I started pantsing. And for me, that just helped unclog all of the problems I was having. That basically, I kind of resigned to the fact that it was going to be nonsense probably at first. And I just let myself write maybe 4 chapters of nonsense. But then I understood why it was nonsense. And suddenly I was like, I like the whole letting your characters do the talking thing. And the characters started to do things I didn't expect them to. And I was like, that's cool. I need to write this down. And I'd make an outline note that actually that character should do this. And there's this other cool character that just came out of nowhere. They need to be in here. And then I know to edit that back, write again with my new direction, edit that back, write again. And I've done that I don't know how many times I've rewritten it. I'm going to say, if you want to churn out a novel in a month, don't do the way I do it. But it was a really nice way of just, because I get stuck so much. There's so many times where I'm like, well, I have about 10 ideas on where to go next, and I don't know what one's the right one. Yeah. Sometimes I just kind of chuck the outline out the window altogether, just kind of like go all zen, and I'm like, I am Ava. What happens? And I just let it come out. I don't worry about fancy literary styles. I don't worry about throwing in all these kind of nice words. I just I just tell it, and then I'm like, I can come back and dress it up later. But I just want to get the skeleton down. I want there to be like, when there's dialogue, I want it to be as dialogue would come. I don't want to kind of force it. I want it to be what tumbled out of my head, which is how conversations, at least with me, tend to go. Sorry.
Really? I would never guess.
Just fired it out of my head. We'll deal with the tidying it up later. But that for me was the only way I could get started. I was so petrified by trying to get it right. And to an extent, NaNoWriMo has helped me understand that about myself, because before that I would kind of freeze for a month at a time and be like, I don't know what to write next. Whereas NaNoWriMo was just like, I don't care, I've got to write something, I've got to work out, I've got to hit. And I have actually rewritten a bunch of stuff as I've been doing NaNoWriMo. And it really helped me solve some problems. So sometimes I feel like if you're stuck and you don't know how to get started, just do it. It doesn't have to be brilliant the first time you try it. If you've got an idea, even if it's just a scene, or if it's a non-fiction thing, if there's something that you've seen that you're kind of passionate about and you don't know what the point is, but you just want to write it, you could just try writing it. If outlining's not working for you, just write it. You don't have to show it to anyone immediately. Sometimes just getting it down unclogs all of the backlog of thoughts. And it makes it something real, and suddenly it's something to tweak rather than something to create. So that would be my suggestion if you're kind of struggling to get started. Do you have any?
For me, even though I do outline extensively, as I'm writing, that's when I realize everything I forgot when I was outlining. I think a lot better as I start writing. And so my outlines will change drastically, for one thing, as well as expand immensely. I'll think of all sorts of different subjects that I'm not covering. And my outlines will often be a bit vague. Like I'll, for instance, have a chapter about practicing, and of course, practicing is good. And that might be all that I have in the outline. Practice lots, practice real good.
You should practice.
But when I start to actually get to writing that chapter, all of a sudden I realize I have 2,000 words to say on practicing. Nice. And so all of a sudden it becomes this major subject. So even though I outline, I don't always outline to a minute degree. I have. When I first did The Art of Freelancing, I outlined everything I was saying in there. The outline is tens of thousands of words, I think.
Wow.
It was very, very intense. Because it was talking about business and marketing, and I'd never done anything like it before, and I wanted to do it just right.
Can't really
wing
that.
And so it just took forever to get down. But I think it helped a lot, obviously, when I did that. Another thing I want to mention is there's a really good article that I showed you by Brandon Sanderson on outlining versus pantsing. And it also gets into exactly how he outlines all of his novels. And he is a ridiculously successful and good writer. And he churns out probably 2 or 3 novels a year regularly for years now. He has been churning out just novel after novel
He's
after
a
novel.
Machine.
He really is. He just puts out consistently great stuff. And it's notable to see somebody that can do that, because we always have this idea of writers as kind of wishy-washy people that might write 2 novels in their lifetime, never finish the third, and then die. That has happened several times, and you never know. So it's nice to see these writers like Brandon Sanderson and Stephen King that do work that is so consistently of a high quality. And in such a rigorous manner.
Was Stephen King not a pantser? Was he against pantsing?
He is, but he's consistent.
Yeah.
No, I'm more talking about his level of consistency, the fact that he writes every single day. For a certain number of hours or words or whatever it is. And there's something to be said for that. Cool.
So how about helping people come up with ideas, because there might be people who on the flip side are listening to this and they're like, I have no problem getting down and working, I just don't know, I don't have any good ideas.
I mean, I don't know. I don't have any good ideas.
The man behind the cinnamon.
To be fair, I'm currently working, because I'm thinking, even though I had the goal of 30,000 words this month, I don't actually know that my book that I'm working on is actually going to be able to keep going for that long. I have a feeling I might get to the end of it before I hit 30,000 words. It's going to be a short book, and I already started with about 16,000, and I never intended it to be any bigger than like a little tiny book. So there's a chance I'm going to hit that goal, and then I'm going to be confused because I'm going to still have more words to write this month. And so I'm currently considering and contemplating doing a fiction novel. And so actually just the other day I was starting to write down some ideas. And I think for me, that's kind of how I do it, is write down a short, 3-sentence idea of either a theme I want to cover or a certain character doing something. That's kind of how I would start. I would start very vague like that, and then start breaking it down into a 3-part something or a 5-part something. Look at 3 different stages that this novel is going to go through, or 5 different acts.
Yeah.
However you like to structure things. For me, it always logically makes sense to break things down into either 3 or 5. Even the nonfiction book I'm writing right now is a 3-part thing. So for me, that's just kind of usually a logical way to go about it. It's usually a beginning, middle, and end. And I like to structure my stuff like that. So yeah.
Cool.
Do you have any ideas on coming up with
I would say that
stuff?
I think that people think that coming up with a good idea is more of a divine experience than it is.
Yes.
I would say that a lot of people don't realize they have a good idea until it's finished, and someone says this is really good, and you're like, and it can take 1 attempt, it can take 10 attempts, or you could take, like, I don't know, you could spend your whole life trying.
Right.
But usually the only thing that makes an idea really good is just that the person finished it and they were really careful about it. It's quite often not the idea in the first instance that's golden, it's the execution of it. So I'd say that not to beat yourself up too much about trying to find the perfect idea, because that, especially in your first novel or anything like that, there's a huge pressure to get it right first time. It's going to be your first novel, it's your magnum opus. It's not. It's really not. Like most authors don't become successful on their first novel. And there is not, I know that for years, I mean, like I said, that my story first took form when I was 18, which is now 8 years ago. And that has changed so many times. It was only this year when I finally went, oh, whatever, any idea, just do it and stop trying to question it. That's when it finally took form, and now it's so much better than any of the ideas I ever had. I would say that in order to get started coming up with an idea, for me it was just thinking about kind of noting what got me going, what got me passionate about things. And for me personally, it came off of, I realised I got riled up when I was reading in the news about people who thought they were doing good and were actually doing bad, or vice versa. It fascinated me, especially kind of the partisan politics we have at the moment, that both sides are so adamant that they're right and that the other side is evil. That fascinated me. I was like, how can you be so convinced that the same actions are on one side evil and one side good? Like, how does this make any sense?
Right.
And I realized that as I was reading social media and stuff like this, it was this that got me riled up. And so that kind of, it took me a while to realize that was what I wanted to write about. I didn't want to write a biological hash of what's going on in the world. Biological? Where that came out of nowhere. I do not mean biological, I mean political. I didn't want to kind of just make a political observation. I didn't really want to do that, which is why I stayed away from grand fantasy politics. I was much more interested in that personal kind of experience of right and wrong. And that was all that my idea was in the first instance. That's all it needed to be. That was, as much as this has been evolving for 8 years now, that was the spark moment that turned it into what it currently is. And that came from me having no idea what I was doing. I had like a big old list of potential characters, none of whom have made it into this version of the story, might I add.
Nice.
And like over the years, I've drawn them so many times, and obviously they just didn't make it because they weren't relevant anymore. It was that one kind of, okay, this is what excites me. and then I let it kind of grow from there. That was my cornerstone of my idea. And then everything else that kind of came out of that was a manifestation of what interested me. So if you're kind of struggling to come up with ideas, really kind of analyze what it is that either riles you up or makes you smile or anything that evokes something in you that you know that you could get obsessive about. Kind of observe your behaviors during the day, the kind of things that you like to do to unwind or the kind of things that you like that upset you, and kind of pin that, something that's really close to you, and kind of think about how you might be able to explore that. And to me, that's all that a good idea needs to be. The rest of a good idea is its execution, I think. And then that just comes with like consistency, like you said, just kind of being disciplined and keeping at it. And then I think I'm certainly going to be confused when I've finished my novel, and I feel like it's going well. I'm pretty confident with it. And that shocks me because for 8 years I've been floundering around like, I can never write a novel. And now I've got 58,000 words. I've got characters that when I read back through it, they make me laugh, and I get choked up when I read it. And I'm like,
it's a good sign.
Whoa, that's a novel. And I just didn't think I'd ever do it. And there in like there's been less than a year that this whole thing has emerged. And I'm like, wow, okay, that's cool. So you don't have to have some divine like inspiration. The clouds probably won't part. It's a case of making it for yourself, I think. And if it's not a bestseller first time, it shouldn't be.
It's totally going to be a bestseller.
Honey.
Yeah, that's the expectation.
Stop it.
Yeah, we're gonna look back on this video in like 5 years, and you're gonna be like,
oh,
best-selling
so
author and all that. And
He's so sweet.
Yeah, that's the plan.
My favorite fan.
I mean, I am gonna too. It's not just you. I'm gonna be the other nonfiction #1 bestseller. Yeah, you're gonna be the fiction. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, we got this.
Yeah. But don't expect that.
But totally expect it.
Stop it.
Yes.
It's like I'm fully emotionally resigned to the idea of my first novel flunking.
Sure.
I'm like super passionate about it.
Yeah.
I love writing it and I think it's great.
Right.
But then if I didn't think it's great, there's a problem.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of fully committed to the eventuality that I will sell like 50 copies and I will be super proud of myself, and it never sells again. And I'll be like, okay, fine, but that's okay, because then that idea is done. I've learned from it, and suddenly there's fewer possibilities in the world for me to explore, and I know where I'm going next. And that's all it is. It doesn't have to be a massive, like, crazy experience. Just do the thing.
Just do the thing.
And with that, I just had my belly rumble.
Oh,
so
we should go get some food.
We should probably go get some food, unless it's anything. Can you think of anything? No, cool. Let's go and save my stomach.
Yeah.
Can you hear it? I hope the mic isn't picking that up.
It
It's terrible. Oh no. And you're crying again.
I know. I'm just like crying. We're just having a breakdown.
This is a really dramatic ending to the creators' chat.
You just got to me so much.
All right.
Emotional. All right. Well, that'll do it for us.
It's been fun.
So we'll see you guys next time.